Hello, I'm Andrew Sarazin, an attorney with Cannabis Legal Group in Royal Oak, Michigan. We serve cannabis clients across the state of Michigan in their licensing and business needs. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Detroit's proposed recreational marijuana ordinance that they just released last Monday. This is an ordinance that's been in the works for a long time coming. Councilman James Tate has put a lot of time into this, publicly stated numerous times that he's putting a lot of focus in making sure that long-term Detroiters won't be left out by the ordinance and will have opportunities to obtain the licenses for recreational marijuana within the city. Just a brief rundown of what's included in the ordinance. It's modeled as an amendment to the medical ordinance, and a lot of the provisions remain the same. One surprise compared to other municipalities is that Detroit is authorizing all 10 licenses that are authorized under the recreational state law. So in addition to the medical grower license, processor license, safety compliance, and secure transporter and provisioning centers, on the recreational side, they're going to have the equal licenses, grower, processor, safety compliance, secure transporter, and retailer. And in addition, the city is also authorizing micro businesses, designated consumption establishments, marijuana event organizers, and temporary marijuana event licenses. Not all of these licenses have been authorized in other municipalities across the state, so it is somewhat unique to see all the available options authorized in the city of Detroit. They are placing some limits on the number of licenses. Like with the provisioning center licenses currently in the city of Detroit, there's going to be a limit of 75 retail licenses. There will also be a limit of 35 licenses on the micro businesses and designated consumption establishments. The allowable locations for these licenses will be similar to those in the medical marijuana ordinance. So the zoning is going to be the same for like licenses, as well as the distances from schools, churches if required, drug-free zones. All of that remains the same as under the medical ordinance. As I indicated, the licenses allowed, that part of the ordinance is pretty basic, pretty similar to what we do see across other municipalities, with the exception that I mentioned that they are allowing the consumption establishments and the event organizers as well. What makes Detroit's ordinance different is the focus that they've made on Detroit residents. They're creating a certification called a Legacy Detroiter. And what this means is it's going to apply if you've lived 1 year consecutive in the city of Detroit. And in addition to that, you've also lived in Detroit for 15 of the last 30 years, or 13 of the last 30 years if you're in a low income group, which is defined as 80% or lower than the Detroit median family income. And you only need to meet a 10-year of the last 30-year requirement. And to qualify as a Detroit Legacy resident, you only need to have lived in the city for 10 of the last 30 years if you have a prior controlled substance conviction related to marijuana. These applicants can apply for a license on their own or as an entity. To obtain the Detroit Legacy status as an entity, your entity must be at least 51% owned by Detroit Legacy residents. Where this is really going to come into play and benefit the Detroit Legacy residents is in the way that the city has drafted this ordinance to give them a priority for licensing, as well as give them a deal on some of the fees. So half of the limited licenses are going to be reserved for Detroit Legacy residents. And in addition to that, the city is only going to issue a license to a non-Detroit Legacy residents if it would keep the cap below half. So even though they're going to authorize 75 retailer licenses, if they haven't issued any of those to Detroit Legacy residents, they're not going to issue even half of those to other people as well until Detroit Legacy residents obtain licenses. There's also going to be a priority time period for the Detroit Legacy residents. The city will begin accepting all applications on April 1st and do so until April 30th of 2021. But beginning May 1st, they're only going to review Detroit Legacy applicants until June 15th of 2021. After that time, starting on June 16th, they'll then review applications from applicants who currently hold a Detroit medical license. And then beginning on August 1st, they will begin reviewing any applicant that was submitted during the April window. Another benefit that the Detroit Legacy applicants will see is a cut on the application fee and annual licensing fee. They'll only pay 1% of what the standard fees are. The application fee is not yet stated, nor is the licensing fee. I presume the licensing fee is likely going to be $5,000, so that's a significant savings for the Detroit Legacy applicants. One question remaining is whether all of this is permitted under the statute. Per the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, if a municipality is going to limit the number of licenses such that the state will not be able to issue a license to everyone who qualifies, as we predict will be the case with the retailer license and micro-business licenses, then they have to decide among the applicants by a competitive process intended to select the applicants who are best suited to operate in compliance with the Act within the municipality. Now, the Detroit Ordinance states that they're going to use chronological order and a random process to determine when they review the applications within those windows, and that there's no competitive process defined. That raises questions as to whether that selection process is valid under the law. In addition to that, the whole framework of creating priority for Detroit Legacy residents could certainly be called into question. Is that considered part of the competitive process? And if so, how does having lived in the city for a certain number of years make it more or less likely that you're able to comply with the Act? In some ways it may not. The city may have some arguments for how it does comply. What is pretty clear going forward is that there is likely to be challenges and delays based on this overall process. If you're a current medical license holder in the city of Detroit, you're going to have to wait for a window while these Detroit Legacy applicants apply. And if you've been in the city, invested money in your establishment, helped develop this whole process of medical marijuana in the city, you may be looking to move on the recreational license as soon as possible, and you might not be too happy to wait while other people get their applications considered first when you've already been involved with the marijuana business in Detroit. Councilmember Tate has been quite adamant that he's willing to stand and defend these protections for the Detroit Legacy applicants. The ordinance itself even has a provision that if the priority for Detroit Legacy applicants is struck down or invalidated by a court, then basically the whole recreational marijuana ordinance is going to be repealed and they'll stop issuing additional licenses under the ordinance. I think that's basically put in there to try to dissuade people from challenging the ordinance and suing because they don't want the whole thing shut down. But again, for those medical businesses that have already been operating in the city of Detroit, there's a lot of money at stake, and I don't think that they're going to take many chances if they think they might not be getting a license. So there's likely to be litigation related to this. On a related note, there was a challenge to Traverse City's ordinance along somewhat similar lines, challenging that the criteria are not related to determining who's best suited to comply with the Act. And a judge last night just issued a temporary restraining order preventing the city of Traverse City from accepting applications or ruling on those applications under the ordinance until that litigation is resolved. Now that's just one circuit court judge across the state, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, if Detroit sees similar challenges and how a judge will react there, and ultimately how the litigation plays out in full, if it goes to a full trial or if it prompts the municipality to perhaps change their ordinance to try to avoid the litigation. There's just a lot in the air both in Detroit and across the state regarding these recreational ordinances, so there will certainly be more challenges. The attorneys at Cannabis Legal Group are keeping tabs on all of these cases and keeping updated with the current status of how judges are ruling. And if you have any questions about a specific municipality or the validity of its ordinance, feel free to give the attorneys at Cannabis Legal Group a call. Thank you for watching this video, and please feel free to check out all our other videos that we have on our YouTube channel. I'm Andrew Sarazin with Cannabis Legal Group. Thanks for watching.